G'day, mate, and welcome to Friday Facts 356 Blueprint Library for Reels. And I got a Reels mojo with me. Hey, mate.
Do I have a real real JD?
You
Like,
do?
is it real life or is it fantasy? The Blueprint Library.
Oh, well, look,
I mean,
we did cover, like, a few weeks ago when they said they're moving up the schedule, that the Blueprint Library was cancelled and wasn't going to make 1.0, and now it's made it come back. And one, I'm thrilled. Two, there's a backstory to go with why it wasn't going to make it.
there is quite a story going on here. This is strap yourselves in. This is a long one.
This is going to be a very, very long Friday Facts. Yes, it will. I'm fully expecting we're going to well and truly pass the 1 hour time slot for this Friday Facts. So yeah, popcorn, drink, press the pause button, grab everything, come sit back down, and we'll get into it. So we have Covrex. Covrex has not been in the Friday Facts for a very long time. It's
No, he hasn't.
something that is not really that uncommon. He doesn't tend to do a lot of the Friday Facts, but he does pop in like every couple of months and do some sort of Friday Facts. I think the last one that I physically remember reading his name in was the one where he said he's going on vacation, had been on vacation, had been playing World of Warcraft, and this is the observations he brought over from World of Warcraft. And that would have been 16 to 17, somewhere there.
Yeah, this was 16 to 7. This was when WoW Classic came out.
Yeah. And he made all sorts of observations. Also, at the same time, they added the research queue, and then they decided not to have the research queue. And then a few weeks later, played multiplayer to test to go to, it must have been testing to go to 17. And then they decided to add the research queue back in because they really decided it was really helpful in multiplayer games. So, there you go. First bit of backstory for Factorio. So, Covrex, the story of motivation. And this is really about burnout, which is something that I guess a lot more people are realizing they hit in life. And it's something that, as a content creator, I know I've hit burnout a few times. And I've sort of been lucky I can take a small break, and that's essentially what Covrex has done. So yeah, it's about his personal struggle with Factorio in life, and he says we can skip ahead, but I think this is pretty important to cover.
Yeah, this is really interesting. It's not something that really shouldn't be skipped.
Yeah, so 2 years ago he started having these problems. It's harder and harder to force himself to work on the game, and he didn't enjoy it that much, so he was starting to look for a way to have a break. And then he disappeared from Factorio development on August 26, 2019. It was the release date of World of Warcraft Classic. He planned for 3 weeks of playing kind of extended to be more like 3 months. One of the big reasons I already had a level 60 priest, and then I realized tanks were hard to come by, so we re-rolled a tank and learned how to play it and leveled it to 60. It was great fun to finish all the dungeon content and acquire the pre-raid best in slot. This just to find all tanks are far from a hot commodity when it comes to raiding, and where you just need a few in the 40 people raid. So, at this point, he thought he'd come back to work with full power, but he just couldn't. When he tried to work, he had this strong, almost physical feeling of disgust. It was impossible to overcome, which I've been there, done that. It's not fun. It was clear to me at this point it was a typical burnout situation, and it's fast from surprising after many years of hard work. So he said, yeah, he just trying to get any sort of motivation just made it worse, and forcing yourself to work definitely makes it worse as well. The team was still working well and making good progress without him present, so he took the advantage of it and continued to have a break and spent more time with the family and on leisure activities. As the situation was not getting better, there were even proposals of selling the company and getting rid of the responsibility for good. For most people, this would sound like a rational choice, but I was far from open to doing that. I generally don't like doing something just because it's the norm. The norm is always trying to, in most people's cases, get the biggest and best business possible, and then
Then dump it.
Yeah, if you can't keep growing it, dump it to somebody else, and hopefully they continue it or burn it out, one of the two. But yeah, he says, I didn't forget why we started working on this game. We wanted to make games that we couldn't find. We wanted to have fun doing so. We wanted the game to be primarily for fun for us, not as a focus group that has the most financial potential. So they faced the hypothetical decision. Either we sell it to a big publisher or we shut down the studio. He was leaning towards the latter because you can't put a price tag on the fact that they still own the game. In a later case, we could always come back anytime we felt like it, felt like time was right. Say have a watch it being milked as a microtransaction filled cash grab by some company. And
Prison Architect.
I haven't played Prison Architect in a long time, but I have no
Prison Architect.
I have no idea how you'd fit microtransactions and stuff into Factorio, but I'm willing to bet companies like EA would definitely work out a way to do it.
When there's an EA, there's a way.
Oh, can we get that printed on a shirt, please? So where are we? So yeah, this was the lowest point personally, and I was generally not feeling well, and I was lost in search of purpose. One of the biggest reasons I didn't feel well was that I was becoming more and more lazy. When you don't have to overcome daily obstacles and annoyances, you become more and more lazy until even the most basic things start to be a huge pain in the ass, and you generally don't feel well. This is where I was, and I've been there too. You had burnout, Mojo?
Yep.
You've been doing this how long now?
Too long.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but before we hit the record button, we were talking about you streaming back in 2017.
2017. I started in 2017.
Yeah.
And I've only been playing the game for over a year.
Yeah, I actually have probably been playing for about a year-ish as well, and yeah, started off in about 2017 as well. So yeah, it's a long time. In the meantime, I was occasionally playing some simple games with my 4.5-year-old son. Earn to Die and Into Space 2. I was trying to find some nice, cool games that we could play together, and I didn't find anything. Feel free to give me suggestions in the comments. There have actually been some really good suggestions. So Kovacs figured he could actually try to play Factorio. So he started a peaceful game for him, showed him how to move around, mine, craft basic stuff, and let him play. Just running around having a blast that he can mine trees and explore. Some other day, I joined him and built some small factory so basic technologies are unlocked, and he could play around with that. He eventually set himself a project to create a wall around the entire factory. And this is when Mojo will tell you not to wall yourself in. He was very focused and he kept at it. 3 days later, he came to me, showed it to me, and he was so proud. Sometime later, he played alone for a while, and he showed me a very basic mining smelting setups. It was very weird, and watching new players play is
It's a weird experience.
Definitely weird. I've actually had 2 of my kids tried to pick up Factorio, and it's not covering the tutorial. There's no alt button. I had no idea what they were doing for like 6 hours. It was interesting. Interesting. Yeah. It was very weird, but it worked. And this is when I realized how great Factorio is for children. You can scale the skill set from very, very basic up to almost infinity. He can't read. He didn't know numbers greater than 4, and yet he managed to play. And within a few days, he kind of recognized numbers up to 10 without even realizing. When I showed him how to construct robots and personal request work, he was super enthusiastic and talked about construction bots to everybody he met. Yeah. 4-year-olds just get these ideas stuck in their head. They'll tell everybody, including a complete stranger and their dog, about this thing that's just stock. Yep.
This thing is just so amazing.
Yeah. So once he asked me, Father, what is this thing in the list of things I can order? Is this the atomic bomb? Oh, I want to order it. No, we don't even have it researched. But why isn't it listed? It doesn't make any sense. You're right. It doesn't actually. I might actually fix that. So I opened Factorio source code after a long time, made the change that filtered logistic request selection that didn't contain things yet to be researched unless you force unlock them in the settings. I made a change to Factorio. It felt good, and I started to want more. And that's how I got from my lowest point. Speaking of that, I actually found that setting like a week ago, and I didn't even realize it'd been added to the settings menu. Because
This is actually. It was added. I mean, I remember, although I'm thinking about it from when I first read this, I remember a change came in and then people were complaining this huge, like the huge list of things was missing. And it was because they hadn't researched it.
Well, that was one setting I found. The other one was, at the moment, you can have your inventory with your crafting your character or your logistics requests on 3 separate tabs, there's actually another button in the interface settings where you can have that all open on one page. So it actually...
Oh, yeah, that's an old one.
Yes,
Or you're crafting in one big blob.
No. So the crafting tab, the character tab, and the logistics requests are all open at the same time, along with your inventory.
Oh, okay, that one's different.
So that's another setting that just popped out of nowhere. But yeah, so Cover X continues. I wasn't yet prepared for big projects mentally, so I did a few other small tweaks and started to visit the office occasionally, which gave me more and more energy. I was not working because of guilt, I was working because of joy again, and this is when I decided to face the big elephant in the room, the blueprint library. I was scared to approach such a big project in my previous state, but now I felt brave enough, started working on it, and was able to work in full power mode, and the work went forward fast. I overcome a lot of annoying obstacles along the way, which had a positive effect in my overall laziness very fast. And the new blueprint library started to shape up, and I started to feel something I'd almost forgotten. I was proud of what I was doing. Yay. So I'm really, really glad he got over burnout, because it's one of those things that it's a giant mental block, and dead set, people can get stuck in it for ages. I've had it as a content creator a couple of times. I've had it when I was in sales, which is so much worse because then it's tied to your income very heavily, because most people in sales work for commission. And if you're not doing well, you just don't make sales, or you don't make money, and then everything goes downhill from there. Yeah, so we have the story of the blueprint. Oh, this is going to have some
this is a trip down memory lane.
Yeah, side tangents will be thrown in, I believe. So the story of the blueprint from the Blueprint Library development is quite long and convoluted. We've mentioned 12 Friday Facts already, and it wasn't always quite right, but I believe we're finally getting to the final stage in its current rework. Small tweaks and improvements could always be done, but the general feeling is, yep, this works finally. First mention of Blueprint, apart from the blueprinting mod, was in Friday Facts 16, 6.5 years ago. So we should cover the blueprint mod really quickly. Or should we do... No, we'll do first blueprint implementation. Yeah. So blueprints were originally a great update where you compare it to the state of just not having them. But everything was very plain and primitive from today's perspective. You actually had to craft a blueprint from one advanced circuit, and the setup window was not the greatest. It was horrible.
It was horrific.
And the confirm button was the blueprint button. The exact example of us doing this GUI in a logical way, but not in an intuitive way. There was no way to change the blueprint once it was set up. You could only clear it for the price of one electronic circuit. So it was red circuit to make a blueprint, and a green
circuit to update
clear it. Or to clear it.
Oh, yeah, to clear it.
Yeah.
Basically, to update it, you had to carry a stack of circuits with both circuits at all times, basically.
You just carried a stack of green circuits at all times, and you get so frustrated if you're out doing something and you didn't have a red circuit on you to make a damn blueprint. And there'd be...
Yeah, that's why I carried both.
Yeah, there'd be many times in multiplayer you're like, hey, do you happen to have a red circuit on you? I just need a blueprint. I just want to copy paste something really quickly. And that was the other thing. Like, you'd end up copying pasting something out when you're doing a new mining outpost or something, and you end up going through 5 or 10 green circuits just because, yeah. So
I'd always carry 10 or so standard blueprints.
Yeah, well, that was the other thing. You just end up with all these blueprints hanging around your inventory. Because they were physical items. They still technically are and technically aren't. So then we had blueprint management, because back then, blueprints were a one-off item, and you couldn't really carry them forward. So in 13, blueprints started to be important. So we had some very basic ways to edit them, where to include tiles and modules, which was a very big update. Also,
that was a big deal.
It was, because even then, well, you'd copy, a whole bunch of assemblers. Do we have beacons? Yeah, we had beacons back in 9, didn't we?
Yeah, had beacons. We had the, before this update, we had the module inserter mod.
Yes, so we had a mod. Well, we had blueprints, which would let you copy and paste down, like, a module green circuit array, for argument's sake. And then you'd have to grab the module inserter mod to then hover over all the assemblers to automatically insert whatever modules you decided, because when you copied and pasted them or blueprinted them down, they come without modules. So yeah.
And then you'd module insert them in.
Yeah, and the robots would fly off and do it. So also
90% of the time, 99% of the time, they would work.
Yeah, I think 99 is maybe a little bit too high, but yes. They also introduced a blueprint book. It cost 15 advanced circuits and could hold blueprints directly. So that was another change. If you put a blueprint in the blueprint book and then you wanted to use it, you had to pull it out of the book to use it to then put it back in the book. Yeah. It was basically an extra third. Oh, actually, no. Could you use them directly from the book?
I'm pretty sure you could.
Yeah, I think it used whatever was in. So
you
it has
just scroll wheeled.
30
the
slots.
Same functionality.
Yeah, 30 slots plus the one slot, which is physically what's in your blueprint book hand. I don't know whether you could scroll.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could.
I have a mental. Like, I remember having to physically click the blueprint I wanted, put it in that slot, and then put the other one back.
You may have been doing that even though you didn't have to.
Okay. I think right about here we should mention that there was a mod, and they mentioned the blueprinting mod that turns your blueprints into a text string. Very
blueprint
similar
string and K blueprint string.
A what string?
K blueprints. K blueprint string. That was the better one. Blueprint string was a bit wonky, bringing them in and out. K blueprint string was much more stable. And I believe K blueprint strings work with the blueprint library now.
Okay.
Or at least when it was introduced.
I think okay. I don't know. It's above and beyond me. But yes, you'd have a situation where game to game, you would pull your blueprints out, put them in a text document, and then copy and paste them back into the next game via a mod.
Yep, blueprint string was part of the standard set, and import the blueprints using one of the blueprint mods.
Yeah,
I think both of them actually cost, like if you imported a string with a book, you paid the equivalent amount of red circuits.
I have no idea. That's just too finer a detail to remember from 3 years ago, roughly.
Something like that.
But yeah, so we had 15, the first plan of a blueprint library. The fact you didn't have a way to back up your blueprints and you would just lose them when you died or moved to a different game was quite harsh. So we started working on the blueprint library. I first mentioned this was in the Friday Facts 156, yes. Which is funny because only 5 weeks later they actually had first implementation was pretty rough and shown. So they mentioned it and a couple of weeks later had a semi-working example. Yeah, so this was the very, very early blueprint library, which was better. It was still clunky. It was still it
was a thing. It did stuff.
Yeah. Okay, game blueprints were in the actual save game, and storage blueprints were in your client, weren't they?
Game blueprints were stored in the game file, game save.
Yeah, they were part of the save game. Yeah,
part of the save game, and then your library was your library. And whenever you joined the game, your library was copied to the game library.
Oh, that was so bad. Yep. So yeah, note that the play button was the way to export the blueprint into your game as an item, so you couldn't put so you could put it in your inventory and use it. That was another thing. So when they went into the library, they became part of the library, and then you had to duplicate them, I think is the best way of putting it, out of the library into your inventory so you could actually use them, and then
it was weird.
Them afterwards, it was really weird. So first redesign, we, mainly Ox, in Friday Facts 170, quickly realized it needed to be a bit more intuitive. The way it was exported and was streamlined, you could just drag and drop to your inventory, which made one hell of a difference. Blueprints got used a hell of a lot more, at least the library did. Another way of exporting was done secretly. When you held a blueprint record whilst closing the library window, It was seemingly useful, and you can just grab it from the library and build. But once you were done and press Q to clear the cursor, the item was just spilled into your inventory. It was common at these times that your inventory was slowly getting cluttered with random blueprints, and you had to do a cleanup from time to time. Yes, that was
Yep, that was very much a thing.
very, very much a thing. You'd look at your inventory because it was suddenly full and find out you had 3 rows of nothing but blueprints. The blueprint editing window was also heavily improved. Yeah, it looked better. And this is... Oh, no, it was the next one. Yeah. And then in 16, they had the blueprint preview was finally updated. So it was only about connecting the belt, pipe, and wall entities, but added a lot to the understandability. So we have a standard 4x4 balancer. You can see that the belt's actually curved now. Whereas if we scroll back to... even in 13,
yeah, up until 16, it never rendered them as they would in the game.
No, it rendered them as exactly the direction belts were going to go.
Entities.
Yeah, so no curves, just the 4 cardinal directions. All walls were separate, and all pipes were separate, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you had a row of pipes going horizontal, you'd see a whole lot of one pipe segments going vertical. Yes. And walls would be just a single wall beside a single wall beside a single wall. It was really weird to look at, but we just got used to it. It was part of the charm of the game. But yeah, I do remember Friday Facts 221 where they finally added this. I'm like, oh, it just seems logical. Great. Yeah, it was well and truly, I don't know. Overdue.
It's a thing.
What else did they add? So was it in 16 that you could start removing? No, it was 15. You could start removing individual items from a blueprint in the preview window.
15 was when you could do that in the preview.
And then 16, they just added that. They also changed over the icons. They actually added a export to string button when you had when you're first making a blueprint, which prior to that didn't exist. You had to put it into the library and then drag it down to the bottom weird bit to get an export. Yeah, old Factorio.
Also, there's the picture.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the picture to load. I still don't have internet, by the way.
Oh yeah, there is that minor detail.
Oh gosh, yes, that's an old school blueprint.
Yep, that's what they used to look like.
Yeah, so you can see none of the pipes are physically connected to one another. They're lots of just little vertical pipes. And none of the belts have curves in them. They're all in their 4 cardinal positions. Yeah.
And the batteries are Duracell.
Oh, see, the Duracell batteries. I love the Duracell batteries. And I actually think Mojo sent me an image that I wanted to hopefully put in that video, but maybe I forgot. Yeah, the good old Duracell batteries. I missed it.
Also, that was from version 13. The book does scroll like it always has.
Okay. There you go.
Which I thought it did.
Mate, does it scroll? Maybe it scrolls backward.
The scroll by default was weird.
Yeah, I think that was one of the other minor changes they did. You scrolled.
It was Mac user type scrolling. Up is down and down is up.
Yeah. If you scrolled down the book, it would go up through the book. It was weird. So yeah, I did a lot of, let's just swap the exact blueprint I want and put that down. Yep. So then we entered the endless discussion phase, which has been a long time. We're on Friday Facts 350, and this has been going back since the 250s. So they knew a lot of problems with Blueprint Library, and we're desperately trying to figure out a way to solve them in the various crazy ways. Back in 249, they had, I think that was the one where they did, I don't even know whether I can get this to load in a hurry. Nope. They put in 3 different proposals.
Yeah, this was the blueprint proposals.
4 different
with
proposals.
a new hotbar as well.
Yes, with the new hotbar. And the hotbar made it in very, very quickly, but yeah, it's...
This is when your demand for the blueprint library overhaul started, really.
Yeah, really a couple of key features, which thankfully they've finally included. But yeah, it started there. I actually think it was 255 that I really got on and started harping about the blueprint library. That's the mod portal. Blueprints proposal. Yep, giant proposal by Twinson. Yep. And yes, when they added the copy, paste, undo, and all that sort of stuff in 255 and the research queue. And that's the last time I really remember Kovarex featuring heavily in a Friday Facts. Apart from the Wednesday Facts that we had to do because he edited something after Friday Facts got published. That's since then as well. But yeah. So yeah, from the player perspective, blueprints are always just items, and the blueprint library is not something like a persistent chest. Quick bar movement, stack transfers, everything works exactly like with items, and the blueprint library technical magic is done under the hood. After some time, 32 weeks actually, we presented a UI mock-up for the planned blueprint library. This was a big plan, but since 17 release was approaching, there was just too many other things to do, so they postponed it. The story of Woob and Factorio development. Yes.
Story of Factorio.
Postpone. I think this is the one that I thought was the longest Friday Facts. 282. Where they started talking about all the updates and things that weren't quite finished in on their way up to version 17. But yeah, we did have the blueprint library proposal, and yeah, this is when I really started harping on about the blueprint library, and it needed to support nested books. Was definitely a feature I liked, but had to include decon planners and upgrade planners, which were just recently added to the game. So yeah, in 17 there were more tools. They added the upgrade planner, the copy, cut, paste function with history, and the undo command. They also extended the amount of things the blueprint can handle, mainly trains, because in the past you could handle train stations, but not trains or the wagons. Or they also added magically putting fuel in the trains, which was awesome.
Which was a nice touch.
And it was one of those features I didn't really know I wanted until I had the feature. And then I'm like, hang on. So you mean I can go to the outpost now, build the whole outpost, and then blueprint 4 trains back down at the base and send them out to the outpost remotely? Because we've been using mods to do that previously. Yeah, again, it just became a core feature of Factorio and was wonderful. So yeah, there have been a few small tweaks to 17 to make the usage of blueprints less of a pain, mainly the ability to make a quick bar reference directly from the blueprint library. Yes, no more 300 blueprints sitting in your inventory doing absolutely nothing, although I still don't often take things out of the library and put them in my quick bar. I tend to just dump them in my inventory, and then yeah.
Because this is JD we're talking about and never cleans in your inventory.
Oh no, I clean my inventory all the time. It's just doesn't stay clean. Using it, create a new item. The item is a copy of the blueprint library record, so you can build from it, and pressing Q to clear the cursor. It just deleted the blueprint instead of cluttering the inventory. But the blueprint library still didn't get any real improvements. Current blueprint library in 18 improved the blueprint setup window so it matches the new GUI style. And again, it just looked a little bit cleaner. It was definitely an improvement to have all the details on the left with the blueprint on the right, and now it scales better to the overall screen, because that was a big problem they'd had for a long time. And they also included the delete blueprint button, because people couldn't find that, and it was, is it shift right click?
Yeah, deleting blueprints was always a bit of a hassle.
No, it's shift right click to clear a blueprint. And then I got to remember, as soon as
you had to bring up the editor and then click delete normally.
You had to make the blueprint of something.
You couldn't have a blank. You couldn't have a blank blueprint. You had to make a blueprint and then edit it and then click delete.
Yeah, it was weird. Or I've seen many people dump like 15 blank blueprints because you just pull them out of the library for free. But by this stage, dump 15 blank blueprints in a wooden box and shoot the box.
Also good.
Or drop it in the Logic Network and find out that later in a storage chest you've got 150 blueprints doing nothing. So yeah, we have the new blueprint library. So if the build-up led to nothing, be pretty lame. So as you expect, the blueprint library is now finally getting a real improvement. It looks It looks nice now and mainly fits the style of the rest of the game. It does. More importantly, we have My Blueprints and Game Blueprints as two separate tabs, and that's one of the other changes that happened over all the iterations of the Blueprint library. They now no longer automatically download into the Game Blueprints library, because I gotta remember there was some massive multiplayer event that happened, and the server crashed because so many people joined with so many blueprints that the server tried to auto-download everybody's blueprints at the same time and just fell over.
Yeah, it's happened a few times.
Yeah.
There's been a few MMO events where that's happened.
Yeah, it's now fixed, and I think there's even an option now to not let people import blueprints into the game save at all. So yeah, definitely improved blueprint library. Definitely looks like the current theme of Factorio with a new inventory and everything else. The manipulation, as it was agreed 2 years ago, the blueprints of the blueprint library are manipulated as items in every way. Twinton forced me to agree on this way, and I wasn't convinced at the time, but when I started to implement it, was instantly clear that it was a better way than any other proposal. You don't have to learn anything new and just manipulate the objects exactly the same way as you used to, and it just feels right, because there was talk of a blueprint being a non-physical corporeal item that just gave the bots an instruction of what to do, but you couldn't physically put a blueprint in a box to give it to a friend.
Yeah.
And lots of people disagreed with this, because the idea of being able to do all sorts of things, like what's that mod that auto builds blueprints for you? Yeah, that one. Recursive blueprints would no longer exist, because you couldn't put blueprints in a box and have the robots go and auto build a base for you, because blueprints in a box would no longer work. On top of that, it just means that the only way to share a blueprint would be to export the string and then email your friend in the middle of a multiplayer game with the blueprint string so he could import the blueprint string, or drag it to Game Blueprints and drag it back out of Game Blueprints. But then technically you're sharing it with everybody else on the same save, not just your mate. And, some people are a little bit weird about their blueprints. Yeah, so they're physical items, which is great. There's also quite something happening in the background when transferring blueprints, as still very different types of objects in the inventory and in the blueprint library, but the user is now completely shielded from this, which is, again, great feature. The unification. All the related UI was uniform to look the same. The current version, for example, opening a blueprint book as an item looks very different compared to opening it in the blueprint library. And it even has different features. Okay. I hope we get an example of that. And then the identification. Now we get to the new features. First of all, every blueprint tool has an editable name, description, and icons. For blueprint books, upgrade planner, and deconstruction planner, these icons are optional, but overwrite the dynamic icons shown for them. This might be useful. These are mainly useful for books if you want to have have the same preview regardless of the currently selected blueprint. When the names and descriptions become more important to the user, he can switch to list view, which was again a highly requested item, because I think it was limited to 12 characters or something for current blueprints or blueprint
something
books.
Like that.
It was short, and yeah, you couldn't always fill in.
I think it was 30 something.
Okay, I remember somebody posted on the forums or wherever that it was very limited, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember running into that error, but I couldn't have a longer description of my stupid blueprint.
It was mainly because of the rich text would overflow it.
Oh, okay. Small things help is the upgrade plan now updates the icons of blueprints in books. So, for those of you who don't know, there is an upgrade planner in your game, and you can drop that on top of a book and change all the yellow belt to red belt, or red belt to blue belt, or blue belt back to yellow belt, as shown in the example. Really handy.
So you don't need to carry 3 copies of the same belt Kajiga.
Yeah, or you just do what I do and just put down, like, I have a habit of carrying just like the yellow version, and then on my quick bar, I just have a plain simple everything yellow to red, and I just put down the yellow version and then just drag over the top of it really quickly with upgrade just that section, rather than upgrading the whole book, just in case I happen to want something yellow at like an outpost. Yeah. Books in books is wanted for a long time. It's highly requested as now as possible. The maximum depth is set to 6, mainly to prevent the UI from getting out of hand. Somebody's going to find a way to break it. Somebody's going to find some way of adding 382 characters to the name of 6 books in a row, and it's going to explode. But 6
sounds like a challenge.
6 seems reasonable, but it also means Mojo, the king of all railroad blueprints. You have how many books that just deal with train tracks?
Yes.
So, off the top of my head, and these are his blueprints, not mine, but he's got his left and his right. Plus, he has train stations for each left and right combination. Plus, he has
the train stops are universal.
Okay. Plus, he has
actually,
stackers.
I think they're actually left only.
Okay. He has stackers for left and
right hand.
Yeah. And they're both horizontal and diagonal stackers. Am I right?
No, only horizontal because diagonal's UPS unfriendly.
Okay. What else? Oh, there's the right-hand drive extra wide. What's it called? The tracks are wider apart.
That's the mainline one.
Yeah.
There's no right-hand drive of that. So there's what is there? There's the 2-lane left-hand and right-hand drive.
Oh, I hadn't even got to the
4-lane left-hand right-hand drive.
I haven't even
got
got to the
mainline,
4-lane. Yep.
which is a wide 4-lane with the fancy junctions.
Yeah.
There's the fancy, the stupid 4-lane turning high throughput junction book.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot about that one.
So that's what 2, 4, 6. There's the 8-lane ones. There's the 3 plus. There's the 3-way one, the 6-way track, which is a 4 and 2. So it's got a utility main line in the middle.
Oh, okay.
And I made it, but I never actually used it.
Oh well, next playthrough. Definitely,
yeah. The idea was you have utility trains on the inside, and your all trains and all that on the outside.
Yeah, because your center line's multi-directional. It's forward and backward, but it's designed to have like an engineering train on it. It's just got one type of train or a packed train. Yeah. So it means he can finally put all his blueprints in one single book, and there can be
one single mega book.
Mojo's magic blueprint book of all the different train combinations that you never know you possibly wanted. That's probably the name of the title for that blueprint book.
It's probably too long.
well, we wanted to test whether we could make the name. Yeah. Okay. So, blueprint books in blueprint books, which is just gonna save so much hassle. I still have for a lot of my blueprint books, or a lot of my blueprints, I have like a master save that I go and or a text document I pull them back from. And just the simple fact that I can put like 10 or 20 different books, or probably not, I've probably only got 5 books I regularly use inside one book, and export one book to take it save to save, because I don't really rely on the blueprint library because I play a lot of standalone installs and I change versions regularly. Yeah, just having one export string just seems to make life a lot easier to me. But yeah, big change. It works logically. It is just logical that it iterates through the book's contents, works hierarchically now. I said some of that or all of that wrong, but more importantly, it means when you scroll up, it should go up in the blueprint book rather than down. Yeah.
No more Mac usering.
Yeah.
The real question is, it's shift plus mouse wheel to change the blueprint. Do we get like control mouse wheel to shift embedded book within the blueprint?
Ooh. I think you need to go to the forums or Reddit and post that really quickly before they release it, because that's actually a really good idea. Because if you had like Rails and then, if you had rails in one book, and then like base pieces in another book, and then belts in another book, and then beacon builds in another book. You might spend a good portion of your game just playing in one section of a book. But yeah, going control to go up and down and swap between books really quickly. And then
given that it goes 6 deep, I don't know how that would affect it. Whether it's within that layer.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Even if control went from like into book 1 and then into book 1, well, 1-1 and then 1-2 and then 1-3 and then back to book 2 and then book 2-1, book 2-2. It just means user control, if you just skip to the first blueprint of the next book, doesn't matter which direction they want to do it, it'd just be that much faster. And again, it'd be fairly intuitive that you could shift to go up and down blueprints, control to go up and down books. Yeah, definitely that would be one I'd be posting in the forum/Reddit. And if Mojo doesn't get it by the time you guys see this video, go post it yourself. That way you can claim all the credit. Anyway, on to the tools in the books and the libraries. Since both the upgrade planner and the deconstruction planner also kind of virtual and configurable, makes sense to allow them in books and the blueprint library. The preview of the book changes when you switch between the different types of objects. So it means I'm definitely going to have a blueprint book that is full of nothing but upgrade planners, and definitely another book that is full of nothing but deconstruction planners. You know,
just all of the deconstruction tools.
Yeah, well, like clearing stuff off the ground, just doing trees, doing just rocks and not trees. For those times when you're out in the middle of nowhere and you need 5 train track, and you have the steel, you have the iron, but you don't have any stone on you. Just different decon planners I tend to go and make just about every save. Like a decon planner that removes everything from the base except for power poles, roboports, and radars. I make one of those in every single game because there are times when just that whole part of the base needs to go away now. We're done with it. But obviously you want to keep power to power the roboports and the radars, and everything else can bugger off. Yeah. So, yeah. And then we have the copy. Since the blueprint manipulation is now always moving the blueprint around, never making a copy apart from the import-export workaround, we really need this feature to make an explicit copy. The nice touch of the copy is made of the current unconfirmed edit of the blueprint, so you can make a slightly modified version of it quite fast, which is far overdue. Because I imported Mojo's blueprint strings for normal rail. Yeah, normal rail, and then I had to change over parts of them to upgrade them to Factorio Extended with bigger and better power poles. And I think because I was halfway through using normal power poles and bigger power poles, I ended up having 2 copies of the book, one that had been upgrade planted and one that hadn't, which was just...
That was a bit silly.
Well, I needed 2 because I didn't have enough of the tier 3 power poles. So I had, for a period there, I had 2 blueprint books that I was trying to deal with, depending on how rich I was at the time. Yeah, so again, one of those changes that was really, really overdue. There has been a couple of requests I've already seen that we haven't covered it because it's a mod, but V has made a wonderful mod that lets you edit recipes and stuff like combinators inside a blueprint, and that's been requested. Can that be added to the library? I think the answer is a flat no, but you know, it's been requested because there are definitely times I'd like to just tweak an assembler recipe sometimes in a blueprint. But yeah, and by personally, the most wanted feature, you can change the contents of the blueprint while the name, description, icons, and quick bar links and positioning is preserved. So again, same story. I could, after I've iterated on like a green circuit 1, 2, 3 times, and I have to keep going back and making the same damn blueprint and calling it the same thing, I can just go, hey, this is the updated version because I fixed the inserter that I had missing or flipped the wrong way for the 3rd time. And rather having to go type everything back in, I can just go, hey, we just need to update it, and it's now called this. Or it now has these items in it with all the same details. So again, massive feature. And then the very, very last, the very important one, which I know Mojo was a little bit pleased about, is
Just a teeny bit.
building in map. Our setting had a great timing with this feature and building blueprints directly in the game map. So, past history. You used to be able to do this.
Yeah, you actually used to, used to be able to do it in map view.
You used to be able
Used to be able to ghost into shrouded area, and then it was removed.
yeah,
You only blueprint.
anything under Fog of War, you could just blueprint and it would just magically work. And you had to be zoomed in enough that you were seeing the real terrain
The
rather
real world, yeah, you couldn't. So it was slightly different to this. Like you couldn't blueprint in map view, but you could blueprint into the uncharted areas.
Actually,
Couldn't
as long
as it was explored. It was when you didn't have radar coverage.
Okay, I thought it was even as long as the chunk existed, you could blueprint into it, but maybe...
Yeah, as long as the chunk existed and it was valid.
Yeah, so as long as that piece of map that you're blueprinting onto physically existed in the game, you could blueprint to it, which meant that a lot of us have some very, very large solar arrays, which you would just go and line up with another part of your solar array and click blueprint, and it didn't matter whether you could see the whole thing on the screen or not, because it would just go into the black areas, the fog of war areas, and just work. And then that feature was removed in, I would say,
16 or 17, I don't remember. I think it was 16, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 16 as well. Because I remember heavily using it in 15 to do large solar arrays, and then being really frustrated I couldn't do that in 16 anymore.
Yeah, or laying down massive railway blueprints that you could lay down.
Oh yeah, being able to put down massive railway and smelters already pre-configured and everything else from previous save, and then they just work. Whereas now you had to have full radar coverage, and then it's so big that you can't see it, so you had to roughly stand in the middle, have a 0x0 marker that you knew exactly where it was, so you could stamp it down and then run around all the outskirts and make sure it actually went down and you didn't screw up and, you know, accidentally put a power pole in the middle of some build or whatever, and then repeat the process 2 or 3 times and make sure you didn't accidentally move it off by a square, because there was no undo command back then either. Thank God for that command as well. Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, another really, really good feature. It does mean that those really large solar and nuclear arrays now, people can just zoom in map view and just go dump, done. Which is going to make building just a little bit easier, a little bit faster, especially for, big solar, big rail. They're the two I can really think of. But yeah, these changes have been finalized and tested, so should be available in upcoming weeks just before 1.0. They've got 3 weeks. 3 weeks? 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
4 weeks to have it done, implemented, up and running, us to test it, work out all the bugs, and then fix them. So... yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. I do want to point out this is the latest technical Friday Facts ever. So they knew this was coming, and this got posted 2 minutes to midnight on Friday.
Took a lot of writing, I think.
Yeah, it took a lot of writing. I'm willing to bet Kovarex had some back and forth on the whole first section, because I'm really, really glad he got over and dealt with the burnout. I know how bad it is. And I'm really, really happy with everything that's been proposed for the Blueprint Library. Obviously, I want to see it. I want to get my hands on it. I want to build with it. I want to play with it. But I'm really, really impressed. I think everything that I've been harping on, asking for, requesting for a very, very long time is implemented with a few other things I didn't even think about. Like I know I saw on Reddit, Rain, who's another massive Factorio streamer, said blueprints for map view. I don't know, they're still coming up with ideas that just blow my mind so much. This is genius, and after thousands of hours of streaming Factorio, I have never once heard anybody in chat suggesting anything like this. Yeah, I haven't thought about it either. I've thought about it from like non-fog of war, zoomed in on the map enough that you can physically see the map, but never from map view, because it just didn't occur to me.
I do have one concern with it though.
Mm-hmm.
And that is it encourages more people who sit in the center of the base, never really doing anything, but just map view overlording.
See, I'm caught.
Which is why I don't do public multiplayer anymore, because you get more and more people.
Who just map view everything.
Yeah, they map view everything. You know, they'll just stand in one spot. They'll just be marking miners with the decon planner, scouring the map, marking them for decon planner, and doing all sorts of other little bits of busy work, really, like that.
So,
and never actually advancing the game. It's something that started becoming a problem in 15.
It's something that okay, it's something that's probably been a problem for a long time, between the availability of blueprints and stuff like Factorio Prints, which is a website where a lot of people have shared a lot of good blueprints and a lot of bad blueprints, and a lot of people go in there and grab blueprints and they don't know how they work, but they've read the description, it sounds like that what they want, and they just dump it down not knowing any better.
Yeah, blueprint Lego.
Yeah, look, I like overlording from the middle of a base, and there's actually a mod called Brave New World, which removes the player character, starts you off with like a couple of roboports, a couple of construction bots, a couple of logistics chests, at basically burn a city level, and that's all you've got to research robots. So you need to manipulate the bots to move around, including the roboports, to get a base up and running, and so on and so forth. So I have spent a lot of time in my own games, in single player and to a certain extent multiplayer, doing overlording from the middle of the base. Just doing everything from map view. You know, I can blueprint, I can use the Q button to select anything on my screen into the pipette tool and build whatever I need. And
yeah, there's a certain, what I mean is there's a certain type of player that, like, they just will not do anything. They won't build anything in the base. They won't do any outposting. They won't do.
They won't do anything
to progress the game.
They won't do anything unless a bot can do it for them. Yeah, look,
not even that. They just literally won't do anything but manage research and just, as I say, mark a few miners for decon and then tell other people to do it for them instead of going out and doing it themselves.
I know there's a few players that I could think of off the top of my head that I've played multiplayer games with that do this sort of stuff, and it's a catch-22. I think it's an achievement to have a base that you can just stand in the middle of the base and just order everything around. It just happens. By the same token, yeah, there are always times when you need to physically go out to an outpost and physically build an outpost rather than build a giant roboport network out there to put down 10 miners to then remove the whole thing and step it back to not have it connected.
Well, you see, building a robo network out there is at least doing something. I mean, players that literally won't even do that. They'll mark some stuff for decon and then they'll just yell at other people to do it for them.
Oh god, that's
that's what I mean.
That's a whole new level of pass. Yeah, I tend to agree. Like I said, I have played with players that they're in charge of research. That's their qualification.
Yeah, and they're not even very good at it. They'll do 20 ammo researchers instead of maybe unlocking blue science.
Generally on my multiplayer maps, we're blowing through research so fast it really doesn't matter. Like, pick anything.
Yeah, they're a little bit more focused than a random map.
Yeah, random maps full of random people are. Yeah, we're not even going to start there. But yeah,
yeah, they used to be cool.
Yeah, look, it's. There is a certain amount of skill to be able to stand in the middle of a base and just order everything around and it magically happen. Yes, there are players that are terribly lazy and will do absolutely nothing. And I think that comes down to everything has a pro and a con, and they're definitely the con of that argument. But with all that said, I can't wait for the Blueprint Library. I'm hoping it comes out on the Tuesday release that happens on a Tuesday, which is coincidentally the day after I'm due to have internet. So therefore, in theory, providing Australian internet doesn't get eaten by a koala, a kangaroo, biters, a wombat, dug up by a wombat, who knows. In theory, I have internet and I can actually download the update. Because, yeah, this is one I've been waiting for a long time. But with all that said, I think we're going to call it here. It's sub 1
Yep,
hour
that's
Friday
everything
Facts.
we're
There you
done.
go. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed. We'll see you guys next week for Friday Facts 357. Hopefully it doesn't get released 2 minutes to midnight again. Anyway, with all that said, we're out. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.
Bye-bye.